My mom threw me out at 16 to raise her new kids. Now that I'm rich, she demands I pay for their college, but what happened on my porch changed all. I'm 33 now, working in upper management at a company I've been with since graduation. While I've worked my ass off to get where I am, there's still a part of me that looks back and wonders what life could have been like if my mom had made better choices. She had me when she was 20. My biological dad wasn't in the picture. Honestly, I don't even know much about him. From what she told me later, she gave him the option to stick around, and he didn't hesitate to bolt. No child support, no fights, just gone. We lived in this tiny apartment above my grandparents' garage. It wasn't much, but it worked. My grandparents basically carried her through that time. They helped her with me while she finished school and got her degree in physical therapy. She juggled school, work, and raising me on her own. I'll give her credit, she didn't just sit around feeling sorry for herself. Being a single mom, she worked hard. Those early years weren't bad. Sure, money was tight, but I didn't notice. I spent a lot of time with my grandparents while she worked or studied. My grandpa loved having me around. Honestly, he probably did more for me than anyone else during those years. My mom would still make time for me when she could. She read to me before bed, took me to the park, stuff like that. Things changed when I was about 8. My mom met this guy named Leonard at her job. He seemed all right at first, stable job, normal guy. I remember her saying how different he was from the guys she dated before. They dated for a while, and after a couple of years they got married when I was around 11. Leonard wasn't a bad guy, but he wasn't warm either. He was polite, almost distant. He wasn't mean to me or anything, but he didn't really try to connect either. He treated me like I was just there, like part of the furniture. At first, nothing really changed. I was still living with my mom and now Leonard. It was fine, not great, but fine. Then little things started to shift. My mom started focusing more on Leonard and their life together. Dinners became quieter, less about me and more about them. I remember sitting there, trying to join the conversation and being brushed aside like I wasn't even there. I didn't take it personally at first. I figured she was just excited about her new marriage and trying to make it work. But as time went on, it became clear that I was slowly being pushed out of the picture. I tried harder to get their attention. I worked my ass off in school, brought home good grades, helped around the house, anything to show I was still worth noticing. Then, when I was about 12, my mom got pregnant with twins. Everyone was thrilled. I was too, at least at first. I imagined being the cool older brother, helping out with the babies, teaching them things, and just being part of this new family. I even started babysitting for neighbors to practice for when the twins came, but as her pregnancy went on, my mom's attitude toward me shifted even more. It was like she didn't have time for me anymore. Everything was about the twins. I figured it was temporary, like once they were born, things would go back to normal. The twins came along and it was like I vanished overnight. I mean, I get it, they're babies, and babies need constant care and attention. I wasn't expecting things to stay exactly the same, but this was on a whole different level. It wasn't just about her being busy or tired, which would have made sense. It felt like she stopped seeing me altogether. Family dinners? Those became a thing of the past. She used to be the one planning them, making an effort for us to have some time together, but now, nothing. And it wasn't just about skipping dinners. The little things that used to make me feel connected to her disappeared too. Talking about our day, watching a show together, even sharing those random inside jokes we used to have. I think the worst part was how I kept trying, even though it was clear I wasn't part of this new family dynamic. I still tried. I still worked hard in school, helped out, and tried to make myself useful. But no matter what I did, it didn't matter. I wasn't a priority anymore. By the time I was 16, everything came to a boiling point. My mom and Leonard called me into the living room one evening, saying they needed to have a serious conversation. I knew it wasn't going to be good. I could feel it in the air. They sat me down and started explaining how things were getting tight financially with the twins. They said their expenses had gone up, and they couldn't afford to support everyone in the house anymore. Leonard did most of the talking, laying out all the numbers like I was supposed to feel bad for them. My mom just sat there looking at me, and then she said something I won't ever forget. They deserve more, Not we'll figure it out, not we're in this together, just a clear message that I was nothing to them. I didn't argue. What was the point? I went to my room, packed up what little I had, clothes, a few personal things, and walked out the door. I didn't even look back. I went straight to my grandparents' house. They didn't hesitate to take me in, but man, were they mad. My grandpa kept pacing, muttering under his breath about how he couldn't believe his daughter would do this, while my grandma just shook her head and hugged me tightly. They wanted to confront my mom, but at the same time, they didn't want to cut her off completely, mostly because of the twins, and I got it. The twins were innocent in all of this. They didn't ask to be born, and they certainly didn't ask to become the center of my mom's world at my expense. I couldn't blame them, even if I was angry at the situation. That day was a turning point for me. It was the day I realized I couldn't rely on my mom anymore. At 16, I wasn't just a teenager trying to figure out life. I was on my own. It was scary, yeah, but I didn't have a choice. From that moment on, I knew I had to take care of myself because no one else was going to do it. Living with my grandparents was a relief, but it wasn't easy. They gave me a roof over my head and a place to stay, but they couldn't do much beyond that. They were retired, living on a fixed income, and just didn't have the resources to support me the way I needed. So I started working. My first job was at this local coffee shop. It wasn't glamorous, but it paid just enough for me to buy school supplies, clothes, and some of the stuff I needed to get through high school. Balancing work and school wasn't simple, though. I'd get home late, try to finish homework, and wake up early the next day to do it all over again. My grades slipped a bit, but I still managed to stay on track to graduate. What really stung was that my mom didn't check in at all. It was like I'd ceased to exist for her. Every now and then I'd hear about her and Leonard through family gossip. They were doing well, of course. The twins were thriving and they were living their picture-perfect life in their nice house with their new cars. Honestly, I couldn't wrap my head around it. I don't know why two people working decent jobs couldn't afford having 3 kids. I wasn't some extravagant expense. I just needed the basics. Meanwhile, I was the one struggling. I was working weekends and late into school nights just to keep myself afloat. Juggling homework, shifts, and trying to have some semblance of a normal life was exhausting. It wasn't like I was asking for much from them. Just a little effort, a little care. But it felt like the second I walked out that door, they wiped their hands clean of me and went back to their perfect little bubble. I guess it wasn't really about the expenses. They just didn't want me anymore. Around my senior year, college acceptance letters started rolling in. I was excited but also terrified. I knew there was no way I could afford college on my own. I needed help. So, against my better judgment, I reached out to my mom. I remember sitting in my grandparents' kitchen late at night, holding my phone, trying to figure out how to word the text. My mind kept spinning with different ways to ask for help, without sounding too desperate. I deleted and rewrote it at least 10 times before finally sending, "Hey, I've been accepted to a few colleges. I was wondering if you could help me with financial aid stuff or co-sign a loan." I hit send and immediately regretted it, not because I thought it was wrong to ask, but because deep down, I already knew the answer. Still, a tiny, stupid part of me held on to hope. Maybe she'd remember I was her kid, too. Her reply came hours later, and when it did, my stomach dropped. "We're saving for the twins' future. We can't help. Sorry." That was it. No congrats, no "we're proud of you," just a flat rejection. It shouldn't have surprised me, but it did. Or maybe it just hurt more than I wanted to admit. I stared at the message, trying to process how someone could shut their own kid down like that. It wasn't even about the money. It was the complete lack of care. I sat there feeling like an idiot, wondering why I'd even bothered. I knew I couldn't count on her. I put my phone down, trying to swallow the lump in my throat, but the tears came anyway. I wasn't mad at the twins. They didn't ask for this. But I couldn't help but feel like I'd been cast aside, like I didn't matter. Thankfully, my aunt stepped in. When I told her what happened, she didn't even hesitate. She looked me straight in the eye and said, "I'll co-sign your loans. You just focus on making this work, okay?" She didn't have to do that. She had her own responsibilities and kids to worry about, but she believed in me. She told me she always knew I had it in me to go far, and honestly, That belief hit me harder than the offer itself. At that moment, I made a promise to myself I wouldn't let her down. I'd work my ass off, not just for me, but to prove that her faith in me wasn't misplaced. My mom might have slammed the door shut, but my aunt, she flung it wide open, and I wasn't about to waste the chance. College was no joke. I hustled non-stop, campus jobs, weekend shifts, and side gigs just to keep myself afloat. I even taught myself web design and started freelancing for small businesses. The work paid well, and I had bills to cover. Sleep became a luxury I couldn't afford, but I didn't care. I had a goal, and nothing was going to stop me. And my mom? Still radio silence, not a single text or call to check in. Every now and then, I'd stumble across her social media posts, pictures of twins at their school plays, their birthdays, or their family vacations to Disneyland. She looked so carefree, like her life was this perfect little bubble. Those posts felt like a dagger straight to my chest. So, eventually, I blocked her. I couldn't keep torturing myself by looking at a life I wasn't part of. When graduation finally rolled around, I sent my aunt an invite to the ceremony. She didn't just come, she was beaming in the front row, cheering louder than anyone else when my name was called. My mom? I didn't even bother asking her. If she didn't care about my education when I needed her help the most, she didn't deserve to be there celebrating my success. My aunt, though, she deserved every bit of that moment because without her, I might not have made it at all. After graduation, the real grind started. I moved to a small city for a job in my field. The pay wasn't great, but it was enough to cover my bills and start chipping away at my student loans. Those first few years were rough. I was living in a tiny apartment with crappy furniture and working long hours just to prove myself. I poured everything I had into that job. I took every opportunity to learn, stayed late to finish projects, and volunteered for tasks no one else wanted. Slowly but surely, it started paying off. I got a promotion, then another, and before I knew it, I was moving up the ladder. By the time I hit my late 20s, I was finally in a good place. I'd paid off a big chunk of my loans, upgraded to a decent apartment, and had some savings for the first time in my life. It felt like I was finally getting ahead. My relationship with my mom was still non-existent. I didn't go out of my way to contact her, and she didn't either. Every now and then, I'd hear from relatives that she asked about me, but it never led to anything. She had her family, and I had my life. I think the hardest part of those years was realizing that she wasn't going to change. Some part of me had always hoped she'd reach out, apologize, or at least acknowledge how she treated me. But it never happened. Instead, I learned to stop expecting anything from her. Fast forward to the age of 30, I was in upper management, making more money than I ever thought I would. I kept it quiet, though. I didn't post about it online, didn't tell most of my family. I didn't want to deal with the drama that would come with it. But my aunt, the one who co-signed my loans, was the only one who knew about my promotion. She was proud of me and told me so every time we talked. Unfortunately, at a family gathering, she casually mentioned it to my mom, thinking it might spark some kind of reconciliation. She meant well. She's always been the one trying to keep the peace. But that one comment set off a chain reaction I wasn't ready for. A few days later, there was a knock on my door. I wasn't expecting anyone, so I looked through the peephole. It was my mom and Leonard. I hadn't seen them in years, and I couldn't think of a single good reason for them to be standing on my doorstep. I opened the door but didn't step aside to let them in. "What's going on?" I asked. Leonard didn't bother with pleasantries. "We need to talk," he said, shoving his way past me like he owned the place. My mom followed him in without so much as a hello. "We heard about your promotion," Leonard started, his tone sharp and matter-of-fact. "So, you're finally doing something with yourself? Good for you. About time, really." I stared at them. No congrats, no small talk, just straight to insults. "Okay," I said slowly. My mom jumped in. "The twins are starting college soon, and we've hit a bit of a rough patch financially. We figured, since you're doing so well now, you could help out with their expenses." I don't remember my exact reaction back then, but I know I just tried to process what was going on. After years of silence, after everything they'd put me through, they had the nerve to show up at my door and demand money. "Are you serious?" I finally said. "Why wouldn't we be?" Leonard shot back. "You're making good money now, aren't you? Don't act like you can't afford it. You don't have kids. You don't have a family to take care of. You've got the money. It's not about whether I can afford it, I said, my voice rising. It's about the fact that you two have done absolutely nothing for me, and now you're standing here asking for a handout like I owe you something. My mom rolled her eyes. Oh, here we go, she said, throwing her hands up. You're going to play the victim again. Poor you, we didn't coddle you enough. You've been holding on to this grudge for years. And for what? Look at you, you turned out fine. Yeah, because I worked my ass off, I snapped, with no help from either of you. Do you have any idea how hard it was to get through college without a co-signer, without any financial support? I made it happen, but not because of you. In spite of you, Leonard smirked. Oh, come on, stop acting like you had it so rough. You've got a good job now, don't you? A nice place to live. Maybe you should be thanking us. If we hadn't pushed you out, you wouldn't be where you are today. Thanking you? I said, my voice shaking with anger. You threw me out because I wasn't convenient anymore. You made it clear I didn't matter to you, and now you're here expecting me to swoop in and save the day for the kids you actually cared about? Absolutely not. My mom's tone turned icy. You're being selfish, she snapped. I raised you on my own, worked my ass off to keep you alive, to give you everything you needed, and now look at you. You've got everything you need, and all we're asking for is a little help. They're your siblings. You owe them that much after everything I've done for you. It wasn't just what she said, it was how she said it. Like I should feel ashamed for not immediately bending over backward for her and the twins. I don't owe them anything, I shot back. And I definitely don't owe either of you. You made your choices, and I made mine. You decided I wasn't worth your time or money, and now you're expecting me to put my life on hold for them? That's not happening. Leonard stepped closer, his face hard. You know what your problem is? You've always thought you were more important than you actually are. You think you're better than everyone else just because you made it out on your own. But let me tell you something. You didn't mean anything to this family then, and you don't mean anything now. That hit so bad, but I didn't let it show. Then why are you here? I said coldly. If I don't mean anything to you, why are you standing in my living room begging for money? My mom snapped. Because we didn't want to come here. Do you think we enjoy asking you for help? But the twins deserve a future, and if you weren't so goddamn selfish, you'd see that. But no, you're too busy playing the wounded child to do anything for anyone but yourself. I laughed bitterly. You want to talk about being selfish? You threw your own kid out of the house to make room for your real family? You told me I wasn't worth the effort, and now you want to stand here and talk about what the twins deserve? They deserve better parents. That's not my problem. Leonard pointed a finger at me, his voice rising. You better watch your mouth. We're still your family, whether you like it or not, and family helps family. No, I said firmly. Family doesn't do what you did to me. Family doesn't throw their kid out like trash and then come crawling back when they need money. You're not my family, you're strangers to me. My mom's face twisted in anger. Fine, be a selfish little brat, but don't come crying to us when your life falls apart. You think you're so much better than us, but you're nothing. You'll always be nothing. That was it. I'd had enough. If you don't leave right now, I said, pulling out my phone, I'm calling the police. Leonard scoffed. Go ahead, call them. See how that looks, throwing your own parents out of your house. You're not my parents, I said calmly, my finger hovering over the screen. Not anymore. My mom grabbed his arm, muttering something under her breath. You're going to regret this, she said, as they turned to leave. No, I said, shutting the door behind them. I'm not. That was the moment I realized just how much I'd changed. The kid who desperately wanted their approval was gone. I didn't owe them anything, and I wasn't to let them guilt me into thinking otherwise. After they left, I stood in my living room, phone still in hand, and just stood there. I wasn't upset. I wasn't even angry anymore. I was exhausted. For years, I'd carried this hope, buried deep, that maybe one day they'd see me as their son, their family, as someone who mattered. But that hope was gone. That confrontation slammed the door on any lingering illusions I might have had about them. After that day, I thought I'd seen the last of them. I'd made it clear they weren't welcome in my life, and I was ready to move on. But people like them don't take no for an answer. They weren't done trying to claw their way back in. and what followed was nothing short of chaos. A couple of weeks later, I found out from my coworkers that my mom had shown up at my office. I wasn't there, I'd taken a sick day. But she apparently caused quite the scene. She marched in, demanded to speak with me, and when she was told I wasn't there, she refused to leave. She was shouting about family and sacrifices and how I owed her. One of my coworkers said the next day, security had to escort her out. It was intense. I apologized to everyone, mortified. I made sure to notify HR and told them to add her to the list of people who weren't allowed on the premises. Still, I was shaken. I couldn't believe she'd stooped that low. But the worst was yet to come. My mom didn't back off. One evening, about a week later, I got home from work and found her waiting for me outside my house. She was pacing up and down the driveway, clearly agitated. The moment I stepped out of my car, she stormed over, shouting, "You can't keep ignoring me." I took a deep breath, keeping my distance. "What are you doing here?" "We need to talk," she said, pointing her finger at me like I was a child. "You think you can just walk away from your family, from your responsibilities?" "What responsibilities?" I shot back. "You're the parent, not me. The twins are your kids. You're the one who's supposed to figure this out, not me." That set her off. She started screaming about how I was selfish and ungrateful, how I owed her for everything she'd done for me. "And sacrificed so much for you," she shouted. "And this is how you repay me? By turning your back on us?" "You didn't sacrifice anything for me," I said, trying to keep my voice steady. "Mom, go back to the home you kicked your son out of and don't show up again." At that point, her voice went from loud to downright hysterical. She started yelling so loudly that the neighbors came out of their houses to see what was going on. "He's a brat!" she screamed, gesturing wildly at me. "He's always been a selfish little brat. He doesn't care about anyone but himself." A few neighbors tried to intervene, telling her to calm down, but she wasn't hearing it. Her voice grew louder, more frantic, until she lunged at me, screaming. "After everything I've done for you, stay back," I warned, my phone in hand as I started dialing 911. "I mean it, Mom. Don't you dare." Her face twisted in rage, and she made a wild grab for my phone. "Don't you dare call the police on your own mother. I raised you. I sacrificed everything for you." "You abandoned me," I shouted back, holding my phone out of her reach, trying to keep her at bay. "You threw me away like I was nothing." It didn't feel like I was arguing with my mom anymore. It was like watching a stranger wearing her face. She was screaming about ingratitude, about family loyalty, while lunging at me, still trying to grab the phone from my hands. Through the chaos, I heard one of my neighbors yelling, "I'm calling the police. Leave him alone." More neighbors started emerging from their houses, standing on porches or edging closer, watching this surreal scene of a mother physically going after her own child. Finally, someone stepped in and pulled her away from me just as the sound of sirens cut through the air. She struggled against them, still screaming something incoherent, but the moment was over as the flashing lights of the police car filled the street. I stood there, shaking, realizing how far she'd gone and how much I couldn't let her back into my life. The next morning, I went straight to the police station and filed a report. I explained everything: the workplace incident, her showing up at my house, the screaming match in front of my neighbors. The officer I spoke to was sympathetic and helped me start the process of getting a restraining order. When I told my grandparents what had happened, they were furious. "She's lost her mind," my grandpa said, shaking his head. "I don't know what's wrong with her, but you don't deserve this." "We should have done more for you back then," my grandma added, her voice heavy with guilt. "We thought we were helping by staying close, but we let you face too much on your own. I'm so sorry." I told them it wasn't their fault. They'd done the best they could, and they were the only reason I'd had any kind of stability after my mom kicked me out. They made it clear they were done with her. "We've stood by her through everything," my grandpa said, "but this is the last straw. We're cutting ties." Hearing that was bittersweet. On one hand, it felt like validation. They finally saw her for who she was. But on the other hand, it hurt to know how far she'd fallen and how little she'd cared about anyone but herself. The restraining order was granted a few weeks later, and life finally started to settle down. I poured myself into my career, my house, and the people who truly mattered: my grandparents, my aunt, and my close friends. My aunt, though, she was my rock. She didn't just step in when things got hard. She stayed, and she never made me feel like I owed her anything for it. A few months later, after I'd finally caught my breath, I decided to do something for her. It wasn't about repaying her, it was about showing her how much she meant to me. I didn't just hand her money, I planned it out. I made sure it was enough to cover a weekend getaway for her and her family, something she'd always dreamed about but never prioritized, because she was always putting others first. When I gave her the envelope, she looked confused at first, then opened it and gasped. "What is this?" she asked, her voice shaky. "It's for you," I said simply. You've always been there for me. You didn't have to. But you did. You deserve something good, something just for you." Her eyes welled up, and she shook her head. "You didn't have to do this. I didn't help you because I wanted anything in return." "Sentinel," I said, my voice thick with emotion. "That's why you deserve it even more." She hugged me tight, and for the first time in years, I felt the kind of love and support I'd spent my whole life chasing. She didn't just see me, she valued me. Meanwhile, every now and then, I'd hear bits and pieces about my mom and Leonard. Their financial situation was crumbling, and the twins were barely making it through college. I didn't feel guilty. I didn't feel anything. They had made their choices, and I had made mine. For years, I had carried the weight of wanting their approval, of hoping they'd finally see me as someone who mattered. But now, I understood they never would, and that was okay. I didn't need their validation. I saw my own worth now, and I'd surrounded myself with people who did too. I've built a life I'm proud of, filled with people who genuinely care about me. And most importantly, I've learned that family isn't defined by blood. It's defined by the ones who show up, who stand by you, and who love you for who you are, not for what they can take from you. As for my mom, I hope she finds whatever it is she's looking for, but I'm done being her solution. I'm done being her sacrifice. My life is my own now, and I'm not looking back. If anything new pops up, I'll post an update for you guys. Final update. Hey everyone, I didn't think I'd be writing an update, but something unexpected happened, and I feel like it's worth sharing. After everything that went down with my mom and Leonard, the restraining order, the ambush outside my house, and her meltdown, I thought I was done with that part of my life. I'd closed the door and moved on. But then, one of the twins reached out. It started with a text from an unknown number. "Hey, it's Max. Can we talk? I'd like to get to know you. You're my brother, and I don't know you at all." I sat there, staring at the message for a long time. Max and I barely knew each other. After I left home all those years ago, the twins were little kids at the time, and after everything my mom and Leonard put me through, I had no connection with them. Part of me wondered if this was some new ploy by my mom, but the way Max worded his message felt different. After a while, I replied, "What's this about?" A few minutes later, he called. I hesitated before picking up. "Hey," he said, his voice a little nervous. "I know this is random, but I wanted to reach out. I've been thinking about you a lot lately, and I feel like I missed out on something important. You're my brother, and I don't know anything about you. I hate that." I didn't say much, so he kept going. "I know what Mom and Dad did to you," he said. "I didn't understand it when I was a kid, but I do now. I don't think it was right, honestly. I think it was horrible, and I don't blame you for walking away, but I hate that their choices kept us from having a relationship. That's on them, not you." His words caught me off guard. I didn't expect him to be so honest about the situation. "Max, none of this was your fault," I said, trying to keep my voice steady. "You didn't make the choices they made." "I know," he said, "but it doesn't make it any easier. I feel like I've missed out on having an older brother, and now that I'm old enough to understand everything, I want to at least try to fix that. I know I can't undo what they did, but I'd like to get to know you, if you're open to it." I leaned back in my chair, unsure of what to say. For years, I'd carried the weight of feeling like I didn't matter to my family. But here was Max, reaching out, acknowledging what happened, and asking for a chance to build something different. "Why now?" I asked. "Why reach out after all this time?" "Honestly," he said, "because I don't want us to be strangers forever. I'm not asking you to forgive Mom or Dad, and I'm not trying to make excuses for them. I just want to know you. That's it." His tone was so genuine, it was hard not to feel a little moved. "I've spent a long time trying to move on from all of this," I said finally. "It's not easy for me to open that door again." "I get that," he said. "And I'm not asking for anything big. I just want a chance to talk to you. Maybe see if we can have some kind of relationship. You're my brother, and I'd like to know who you are." I sat there for a moment, weighing my options. The twins weren't responsible for what happened. They didn't make the decisions that tore our family apart. And if Max was making the effort to reach out, maybe it was worth meeting him halfway, even though part of me kept telling me that maybe his only intention was to take advantage of me. I decided to give him a chance anyway, since I don't really know the twins yet. "All right," I said, "we can start with a conversation." His relief was obvious. "Thank you," he said quickly. "That's all I'm asking. I just want to start somewhere." We ended the call shortly after, and I spent the rest of the evening thinking about it. Max reaching out wasn't something I ever expected, and it left me with a mix of emotions I couldn't fully process. The truth is, I'd spent so long seeing the twins as part of the family that had cast me aside. But Max made me realize they were as much victims of my mom and Leonard's selfishness as I was. They didn't choose this any more than I did. I'm not sure where this will go. I'm still cautious. I've built a life for myself that I'm proud of, and I'm not eager to reopen old wounds. But at the same time, Max's effort feels genuine. He didn't try to guilt me or make excuses for his parents. He just wanted to know me. And for the first time, I feel like maybe, just maybe, I could have a relationship with someone from that side of the family. It's a small step, but it feels like progress.